Mr. Ramesh Kanal sir, all the delegates present here, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. So today I am going to present on the topic that is the multi-drop resistance and the extended spectrum of beta-lactamase producing gram-negative bacteria from the chicken meat in Bharatpur metropolitan Nepal. So let's introduce first. So first is the antibiotic resistance. So you are very familiar with the antibiotic resistance. So it is the conditions when an antibiotics doesn't work on a particular bacteria. So the problem arises when there is the multi-drop resistance. So if you can see the word multi-drop resistance. So this word signifies that when three or more than three antibiotics doesn't work on the bacteria, that condition is known as the multi-drop resistance. And I have added the next topic here, that is the of the third generation cephalosporin. So third generation cephalosporins are the antibiotic that is usually given by the physicians. Some of the common examples of the third generation cephalosporin are the cefotaxime, ceftazidime, cefixime, ceftriaxone. So these antibiotics are particularly given by the physicians. But what actually happens is that there is the bacteria which are capable of producing the extended spectrum of beta-lactamase. So these enzymes will hydrolyze the beta-lactam ring that is present on the antibiotics. So if the beta-lactam rings are broken down, the antibiotics will change from one product to the another. It means from one substrate to the another product, the antibiotic will be changed. So the antibiotics will be no longer the antibiotics and the antibiotics won't work. So actually the extended spectrum beta-lactamase is the enzyme and extended spectrum beta-lactam is the antibiotic, which is called the third generation cephalosporin. So next what I am going to relate is that I am going to relate the MDR and the ESBL with the meat sample, the chicken meat sample that we consume daily, which is very cheap and which is very popular among the people. So if you see, the infections by the bacteria leads to the difficulties in the treatment. So prolong the infection. If the infections are prolonged, there is the huge economic loss. Similarly, the treatment can be failed and the persons can be dead. If the infections by such bacteria occurs, then there may be the failure of the treatment and the patients may die. So what is the cause of the MDR and the ESBL? So what may be the cause? The one cause is the overuse of the antibiotics in the poultry. So from the day one to until it is sold in the market, the farmers use the antibiotics. So the overuse of the antibiotics in the poultry is one of the major problems for the emerging multi-drop resistance. So the next is the poor sanitations in the slaughterhouse. So whenever that chicken goes into the market, goes into the slaughterhouse, then the butcher won't do any of the hygienic method to process the meat. It means the water they use for the processing of the meat is not of the good quality. That may contains the various type of the bacteria which are harmful to the humans. So that is one of the reason in which there will be the bacteria in the meat. So if the bacteria, so these bacteria can be transmitted to the humans from the animals. So you can see the bacteria are transmitted to the humans from animals through the consumptions of the uncooked foods. So one of the meat that is very famous in the Newari culture is the kachila. So that is the uncooked meat. So that is also, that traditions was from the buck meat, but now that has been modified to the chicken too. So if we consume such type of the uncooked meats, then the patient may suffer. So next is, if we contact with the uncooked meat and meat surfaces, the patient may be infected with the MDR and ESBL. So what are my objectives? So my objectives was to determine the prevalence of ESBL producing multi-drop resistance gram-negative isolates from chicken meat in the Bharatpur metropolitan city. The specific objectives was to isolate and identify the bacteria from the chicken meat, to perform the antibiotic susceptibility test of the isolated organism, to determine the prevalence of multi-drop resistance isolates, to determine the prevalence of extended spectrum beta-lactamase producing multi-drop resistance isolates. So these were some of my objectives. So these are the objectives in which I initiated my research. And the sample site was obviously the Bharatpur metropolitan city. So a total of 38 chicken meat samples were collected, and the random and non-repeated chicken samples were taken in this study, and about the 15 gram of the chicken samples were taken, 5 from the thigh, 5 from the breast, and 5 from the wings. So this was, this was collected from the slaughterhouse, and this was transported aseptically to the microbiology laboratory of the Balkumari College. So this is the flow chart of my research. So I collect the chicken sample, I put the chicken sample into the peptone water for 30 minutes, then after I transferred 1 ml of the peptone water into the nutrient broth, and then after the selenitia broth. So then after the 24 hours of incubations in the nutrient broth and the selenitia broth, I streak the bacteria from the nutrient broth to the McConkie agar as well as to the amido agar, and from the selenitia broth I streak the bacteria into the Salmonella and Shigella agar and incubated for 24 hours. Then after I observed the growth of the bacteria, after the observations of growth, the bacteria was inoculated into the nutrient agar to obtain a pure colony. So then after I did the biochemical test for the identifications of the bacteria, then after I did the antibiotic susceptibility test, I screen whether the bacteria are ESBL produced or not, and then after I confirmed with whether the bacteria is extended spectrum of beta-lactam is producers or not. So these were some of my methodology that I followed in the research. So what I got actually from the research is that I separated the 2 types of sanitations. One was the good sanitations and next was the poor sanitations on the basis of the questionnaires. So that was the washing of the slaughterhouse, washing of the apron, washing of the hand sanitizer, washing of chopping boards, stored meat conditions. These were some of the factors that determine the sanitation condition. So if you can see from the poor sanitations, if you see the poor sanitations, about 20 samples from the poor sanitations have the 3 bacteria. It means from the good sanitation, only 1 bacteria or only 2 bacteria have been isolated, but from the bad sanitations, 3 or 4 bacteria has been isolated. So the major prevalence was from the poor sanitation. So next we can see the distributions of the bacteria. So among them, Citrobacter was the most prevalent bacteria in the meat sample. That was followed by Citrobacter was one of the most prevalent bacteria. That was followed by the Salmonella and Proteus. So this is the isolations of E. coli from the chicken meat sample. So this is the bacterial colony. So then after we did the antibiotic susceptibility test. So the antibiotic susceptibility patterns are being obtained here. So you can see the imipenem. So imipenem is the second line of drugs. So whenever the case are very complicated, so doctor will prescribe the imipenem, which is given intravenously. So if you see in the Citrobacter, about 32.6% of the bacteria were imipenem resistant. So you can imagine if this type of the bacteria has been inoculated into the humans, so what will be the case? So similarly, if you see the Salmonella are resistance to the ampicillin. So no any Salmonella can be treated by the ampicillin. So similarly, if you can see, the Salmonella can also not be treated by the tetracycline, because you can see the high prevalence of antibiotic resistance in the tetracycline. So similarly is the neutrofuranton in the Salmonella. So if you see the Proteus here, the Proteus, so from the imipenem, you can see the Proteus species are more resistant to the imipenem. So about 25.4% of the Proteus species are resistant to the imipenem. So this is how we did the antibiotic susceptibility test. So then after we determined the multi-drug resistance. So from the Citrobacter, we have obtained 78.3% of the multi-drug resistance isolates. In the Salmonella, we have obtained about 85.2% of the multi-drug resistance isolates. And in the protease, we have isolated about 73.7% of the multi-drug resistance isolates. So what we did is that I also checked whether that multi-drug resistance is related to the sanitations or not, but that was not related, because from our research what we concluded that the sanitations and multi-drug resistance, these are the two different things that cannot be related. So that was not the significant. So similarly, I also checked for the ESBL producers. So from this data, what we obtained is that salmonella percentage was high. About 55.6% of the salmonella were the ESBL producers. So again, I correlate this one with the ESBL producer with the sanitations. So this was also not significant. It means ESBL producers are not related to the sanitations. So if you see, this is the figure in which I have done the antibiotic susceptibility test. So you can see this one antibiotics. So this is not working. So there is two types of the antibiotics. So this follows the combined Dix method. So if you see here, so this bacteria, so this antibiotics and this antibiotics. So if you present here, so the zone of inhibitions is greater in this context. So this is only the cefotaxime, and this is the cefotaxime plus clavulanic acid. So if you see, if we add the clavulanic acid in the antibiotics, the zone of inhibitions will be high. So what does this significant is that the clavulanic acid will inhibit the ESBL. So it means the clavulanic acid will inhibit the extended spectrum beta lactamase enzymes, and the antibiotics are able to work properly. I repeat, so the clavulanic acid I have used here. So this is the cefotaxime, and this is the cefotaxime plus clavulanic acid. So this cefotaxime is alone not capable of inhibiting the bacteria. So if I use the cefotaxime plus clavulanic acid, this clavulanic acid will inhibit, or that will inhibit the ESBL, or the extended spectrum beta lactamase enzymes, and now the antibiotics are able to properly inhibit the bacteria. So next, the final objective of my study was to determine the ESBL producer among the MDR. So I have detected the MDR separately. I have detected the ESBL separately. So now my next target is that how many ESBL are produced among the MDR. So about 34.9% were the ESBL producers as well as the MDR bacteria. It means for 34.9% of the bacteria isolated from the meat sample will be resistant towards 3 or more than 3 types of the drugs, along with the third generation cephalosporin like the cefixime, cefotaxime, ceftazidime, ceftriaxone. So what I concluded is that this study showed the high prevalence of the MDR and ESBL producers, gram-negative bacterial resistance in the chicken meat. The frequency of the gram-negative bacteria as MDR and ESBL producers are elevating globally, and this is one of the major problems. So next, the prevalence of the multi-drug resistance ESBL producing gram-negative isolates present in the chicken meat is about 34.9%. So in this study, there was no significance between the sanitations on MDR bacteria and ASBL producing bacteria, because we are unable to assess the quality of water used for washing purposes and the sanitation conditions of the site where the birds were undressed and eviscerated. So we are unable to assess this one. So that may be the reason of insignificance. So what I recommend is that antibiotic resistance is the worldwide problem and is transmitted from animal sources to the humans.
Take into the consideration of the time.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I will soon end it. So, okay, antibiotic resistance is the worldwide problem, and it is transmitted from animal sources to the human. Is increasing tremendously. So both EMDR and ESBL incidents are considered as the extreme public health issues. This problem is more troublesome to the developing countries like Nepal, where the facilities for the healthcare, surveillance for the antibiotic medications, and facilities to detect EMDR and ESBLs are poorly developed. So antibiotic susceptibility tests will be carried out in order to prescribe the appropriate and accurate treatment of the infection. Abuse of the antibiotics in the animal feed and food animals must be stopped and must be used under the veterinary supervision. So proper sanitation method must be applied for the slaughterhouse. So I acknowledge Mr. Siva Prasad Paudel, the principal of Balkumari College, Mr. Anupuni Bajachare, our program in charge, Department of Microbiology. Similarly, Mr. Dheeraj Kumar Chaudhary is the PhD scholar of Kogni University, South Korea. Similarly, I will acknowledge my students, Hemra Subedi, Raju Shah, Sachin Kafle, Saurav Sharma, and Sunil Nepani, who are engaged in that research, and similarly, my family and friends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So that you can correlate with the others, so they are not, maintaining the good hygiene, not good quality of water, the dressing quality is not good. They are not wearing apron, guns, and all. They are not wearing gloves. So then you can, have a good pictures. That will be very good information to the society. And another, what I think, like E. coli, that is also becoming a dangerous for the kidney failure. It is a very, very dangerous. Like Anup sir earlier told, like HIV or bird flu or swine flu is not a threat, but simple E. coli is, far, highest threat than that. So if we are not taking a simple care, simple, sanitation, hygiene, and we are not, aware of like E. coli, and then they are resistant towards the antibiotics, and then the pharma industry, if they are not designing the drugs accordingly, like today's problem, then it will be a big threat, big problem to the society. Anyhow, it's a very, very good presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.